Yeah, so, with drawing, sometimes we're drawing from imagination and sometimes we're drawing from observation. Today is an example where you're drawing from imagination. The job is design an original character using simple geometric forms, and you have to have 12 of them or more. So I'll do this one fairly simple, but again, you must design your own. Okay, this is Shane's, it's not the one you have to do. You have to design your own. So I'd like you to I'd like you to work with your own idea as you watch me do mine. So we've got cubes we can work with, we've got cylinders, we've got cones, we've got spheres. We can also work with sort of long rectangular prisms. We could even work with just pyramid shapes. These fairly simple shapes. We could probably use a kind of a curvy thing like that. And you could maybe do something a little bit more complex, like, something like that. But I want you to use basic forms. So I'll just make something. I'll just decide on a cube. And I'll give it a sphere. I'll give it an arm. Another arm out the back. And I'll give it two spheres for like hips, and then it's kind of like a person, I suppose. And then maybe sort of walking or running or something. All right, so that could be my character. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Look at that, there's 12 shapes. Sorry, 12 geometric forms. So that's the minimum number. So maybe I could add a few more. I could add some ears, and a little nose, and maybe some eyes. All right, that could be my design. All right, or it could be something else. It could be sort of like just an object-y thing. Maybe it's got a sphere at the back. Maybe it's got a hole here. Maybe it's got some cones here. Maybe some sort of thing that rolls along the ground, and something else like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Maybe it's got some other things along the side. All right, so I could do something like that. So this could be one idea. This could be another idea. All right, so you want to start with something like this. Just make a little bit of a plan from your imagination. Okay? So you're not copying someone else's drawing, you're not copying a character, you're not copying it from a picture or a video. You're using your imagination using 12 basic geometric forms, right, to make something complex. All right, so I think I'll go with this one for now, and I'll just show you what I would do next. So I've got a little idea. Now I'm going to do what I'm going to call a tone sketch. So I'm going to sketch or plan the tone, okay, before I do too much more. But I'm also going to be thinking about perspective when I do this. Okay, so I'll put this over here as a reference. I'll get a new sheet. And on my new sheet, I want you to work fairly big. Don't work too small. Like this is A3, so don't make your drawing this small. Make it maybe half the size. So I want it to be a fairly big-ish drawing, okay? So there's my reference. I'm looking over here. I'm thinking about how I want to put it, okay? So I might actually start with a horizon. And I might have this coming sort of maybe almost down a road towards me. And then I'm going to put it sort of on the road somehow. And then I can pretty much just sort of build the other parts. I'm just going to do it fairly quickly for now. Now, what's happening here is I've gone above the horizon now. So I'm going to now imagine, instead of looking at this from the top, I'm going to look at it from underneath. So I'm changing my design a little bit, just making it maybe a little bit larger. Just sort of thinking about how it might sit roughly. Maybe that, or maybe a bit taller. Yeah, a bit bigger. I might give it a funny shape out the back. So it's some sort of a machine hurtling along a road, but it's got little ear-shaped cones here and a big ball. Maybe the ball will be sitting up here. And then out the back of the ball there's some other strange shape thing. Alright, so that could be my little design. So it's changed a little bit. Alright, because I'm just thinking and I'm the boss, so I can change it, right? Not bad. But I want to now just plan this a little bit more, check my perspective and plan the tone. This is not the finished drawing, this is a plan. Okay. So I should feel free to make decisions, right? So I'm going to check my perspective. Because this is the back of my drawing and this is the front, or this is the back of my object, this is the front of my object, then there should be a sense of this, the vanishing point in this direction. See that? So those lines should appear to come together a little bit. Out the back, not the front. Okay, out the back. And if you bring them together out the back, it'll be fine. Also, this object here, whatever it's going to be, is like a, I don't know, a driving thing. This should also, the lines should also come together a little bit out the back. So this might be a cylinder. All right. So these lines are a little bit closer here than they are here. Okay, and then I would attach this. Maybe this would go into a slit. Okay, and then this might be not a cylinder, but a sort of a wedge-shaped thing. Right, and again, thinking a little bit about perspective. Now this could be some other, well, this could be a cylinder. Now a cylinder has ellipses at either end, right? So I'm planning my ellipse here, and there'll be one here somewhere, but it's going to be fairly flat. Something like that. And then now I'm thinking about the bottom of my object. So I'm just trying to make it a little bit cleaner, get my perspective a bit better. So again, these lines would be parallel if it on the real object, but because of perspective on my drawing, they must appear to come together out the back. This is the back, this is the front of this side, and this is the back of this side, right? So this must be longer than this, so this must come together. And this line up here must also come together. So this is sort of my perspective. For my box. Okay, so now this has to join up here. So my little sphere, my ellipse is in the wrong position now. Can you see that? Actually, you know what? I'm going to make this my final drawing as a demo because it's reasonably clear. But I'm just going to shift this up. I'm going to put this ellipse where it's joining more in the center. So if I sort of mark the center and then I put my ellipse over that, that gives me a better position. So that might be the way it looks. Okay, and now again, if these cones are the same height, then the top of them will run towards the vanishing point as well. So I could give myself a guideline for the top height and then imagine where they're sitting on the top, might be about there. So that helps me position my little lines. So that might be where my cones go, something like that. That one's a bit wrong though. Because I've got to make them follow, this is the vertical. So if that's the center, then be more like that, I think. Yeah, that's better. All right, my ball might be here, but I'm only seeing the top half. And then we've got these other little simple shapes, which I haven't really thought about yet. And I might put a hole here in the front. And because it's a hole, we can see into it. And if we can see into it, we must be able to see underneath this because we're looking up. So there must be a line from here in this direction. All right, so I will continue this as a tone sketch. Now I'm going to plan the tone really quickly. So I'm going to decide where my light's going to come from. I'm going to put it from here or maybe here. This one. So I'm going to imagine this is my light. And then I'm going to sort of imagine shadows. So actually I might put it more over here. So I'm kind of going to imagine that the sun is going to cast some shadows down onto the ground. Now I've made that angle in a bit because the road out here is getting thinner, so my shadow won't follow the normal direction. It's going to sort of curve down a bit. In other words, I'm making this, see, that's a bit narrower than this because of perspective. Anyway, so I'll just try it. So I'm going to put a little sort of a boxy shape here. As if that's the box. And I'm just going to add a little bit on the side. And, you know, you'd probably see a bit of the ball shape popping over and the tail shape thing. And then where this is casting a shadow, or this is casting a shadow sort of back over this side, and then this would cast a shadow sort of out there and then back into here. So probably our cast shadow could look something like this. But over here it's going to get quite faint. All right, now remember, it's a cast shadow, so it will be quite soft edges, but it's kind of good to plan the shape a little bit. It'll be something like that. All right, and so I could build my drawing based on this sketch now. I've got shadow under here. I could make this my second darkest side, the bottom my darkest, and this side could be the brightest. And if that's the light's coming from there, then my cones will have a little core shadow up the side there, core shadow up the side there. My sun, my sphere will have an ellipse, and most of its darker shadows on this side probably, and a little bit of the core shadow over here somewhere. Okay, now under here we have to get a little bit more careful. So we've got a cylinder, so there will be a core shadow out the back getting lighter, and there will be a little bit of bounce light, but it's also in shadow, so probably there'll be a cast shadow like that. Right, the sun is hitting here and casting a shadow onto here. See that? So this object here is a kind of a rectangular thing. So this might be the darkest side. This could be the second darkest, and the top could be the brightest. This is a cylinder. So it has a core shadow on this side, getting brighter. But it also has a cast shadow from here. So the sun's coming down, right, casting a shadow. See this shadow here, right? So it's going to kind of go around and onto the ground. Right, so shadow, form shadow, cast shadow around the cylinder, hits the ground and goes straight. And then it sort of bends up here. All right, so, and then of course if these are cylinders, they'll have a little bit of tone on them. So by doing this, and again I'll just do a little bit of an outline now just to show you what my forms look like. But this could be my little planning sketch. And if I could plan it really lightly and carefully and not heavily like this, I could continue with it as the final as well, but this is just a quick example. Normally, as a, when I was designing and drawing kids' books, or if ever I have to design anything, I normally work fairly roughly like this first. Because it just helps me plan and design. Okay, let's imagine there's some mountains and some clouds or something. And then maybe there's some grass growing or something. All right, so there's my little plan. It's not completely finished. It's just a sort of a pretty good indication of perspective, tone, and the forms. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Close enough. All right. So if I was happy with that and I was doing a final one, I would probably just kind of trace it. Right, now I've got a little light box. Let me just plug that in. But you can also use a window as a light box. Oops. Which one of these is it? I think it's that one. So a light box is a box with light in it. They're great. I've always had one since I left uni. This is my second one. It's quite a light one. So I turn this off and then I turn it on and then I get my drawing and sit it on top. So you can see that I can see through this blank sheet really nicely. So this is good, you know. I like working this way, but also this is the same as a window. You imagine now if I walked up to my window right there, right, that's a window, and if I stuck my paper on the window, then I would be able to trace it this way. It's the same thing. All right, so what I could do is use the window to help me plan. Use the light box or the window to help me plan my drawing, make it a bit neater. This is a 2B. Yeah, light boxes are great. Does anyone have a drawing tablet, I think, or an iPad? iPads with a digital pencil, they're really good too. You can get different drawing programs. So I'm just correcting my perspective here a bit. So in the comic book project, our third project, some students like to work with tablets like iPad, Wacom, Intuos. So I need to correct my ellipse here, it's a bit wrong. So a little bit about ellipses. Ellipses are really tricky. So an ellipse, the best way to practice ellipses is just to draw many of them. Try to make them as smooth as possible. Try different sizes and different sort of directions. I find it easier to draw when I put my arm in the direction of the minor axis. So if I want an ellipse to be, say, here, it's easier for me to turn the paper that way, put my arm in that direction, so that when I'm drawing it, you know, it sort of ends up running along that axis. I just find that the best way. It's harder for me to draw an ellipse like that, right? Because that's the minor axis there, and it's kind of awkward. But if I put my arm roughly in the direction of the minor axis, it just feels more natural. So an ellipse must be symmetrical on two axes. One, the minor, and two, the major. And if it's symmetrical, meaning if it's the same, and if it's smooth, meaning no corners, then it's an ellipse. Now, ellipses are pretty hard to draw fast, but they're also hard to draw slow. Like if I really try to draw this slowly, it's going to probably end up being a little bit, you know, wrong. I can draw it, I can get it smoother by drawing it faster. But it's harder to get it exactly in the right position when I draw it faster. So they're just hard. They're hard to draw. But you just have to remember, they have to be symmetrical on two axes. Right? 1, 2. And they have to be smooth. So here, all right, now I can imagine my center line of the bottom of my box is about here. So I wanted to put in the middle of that center line. And then I'm going to have my, it's going to be going into a hole. So the hole means that the cylinder, the hole in the box would be in this direction. So my minor axis, right, it must be there. Does that make sense? Even though it's coming through from that angle, I need to make the hole in the bottom there, and then I can just make, I suppose I could make this just go straight up, right from that edge down. Yeah, and then here there'll be another little ellipse, but it's going to be much flatter because we're almost seeing it from the side. Okay, yeah, so that's it. You just want to build up your details, check your perspective, I think it's always good to do a planning drawing for anything, or to draw really lightly so that you can check everything first. So this line goes in this direction, back towards this vanishing point. That's a little bit wrong there. Again, I've got this guideline for the top. I think the first one looks pretty good. And the second one's not bad. All right. Hopefully you can see the image through the light box as well as I can. So remember, I don't want you to copy this. I want you to design your own character. It's fun. Imagination is really important in drawing because we get our ideas from our imagination, or they can be visualized in our imagination. And sketching and drawing is a way to sort of find or capture something we can imagine. And it's natural that it changes as you draw it. It's natural that it would change direction or shape. Or I'm going to add something else here. Another little sphere maybe. Another one here. So it's about 13. See how it's just sort of a bit neater now? Because I'm just taking my time. Okay. Just check the time here. So we've got about another 15, 20 minutes. So I'll just keep going with this as part of the demonstration, and I'd like you to keep going with yours. It's always good to have a little rabbit or a pussycat in your drawing, I think. Okay, so now I think I need to start building my tone. So let's do it. I don't need my light box anymore. I can see this line's a bit wrong here, so I'll just I'll just drop this down. It's a bit better. Now remember that the tone is sort of gonna, or the cast shadow is gonna make that fill in, something like that. And then there's a core shadow on the side, or a form shadow. And you could have a little bit of reflected light out the back. And you can use lines. It's not that you're not allowed to use lines, but I just like the line work to be sort of supporting So I'm going to sort of make this shadow area darker again, right? Because as my cylinder goes inside the body, it would get darker. So the cast shadow will be about here. And then a sort of a deepening shadow up in there. And the core shadow sort of blends with that cast shadow. Something like that. I could use my ruler, but it's too far away. Sometimes you can just use an object to help you. With a ruler, as a ruler. So it's starting to look a little bit convincing, I think, under there, a little bit. It's not bad. Okay, so this will be my medium shadow, my second value. So the brightest value will be on this side. I can only see, we can only see 3 sides of a box at any one time. We can't see 4 or more than 3 sides. So even though the top would be the brightest, because we can't see it, I'm going to make the side the brightest. So just a little bit of tone on the side. All right, now, because inside the hole it's going to be a little bit darker than outside, then I could match maybe this shadow with this one. But I can also do a little cast shadow. So that's my form shadow. Now remember this, the sun's coming down like this, so it would probably cast a shadow down there, sort of into the opening. If your lines are a bit wrong or a bit heavy, just knock them back or rub them back a little bit. And like any hole, unless there's a light source inside the hole, the shadow will get darker the further back you go. So the further we are into the hole, the darker the shadow. So we've got the line of the edge, we should see that clearly. We've got the cast shadow. And then the underside, the form shadow underneath. And if it's getting a bit confusing, it's because this is too similar to that. So I'll just make this a little bit darker to distinguish it. All right, that's pretty good. Now I think I'll start to build a little bit of an edge line. Just adding a little bit of character. It also helps define the shape or the form. So this is using line to help with my tone. Yeah, something like that. All right, so what else? Maybe the cones. So they look quite flat until you just think about that core shadow and it being right up to the point, and then it's not much space, so I'll just do it fairly. I'm using the point of my pencil as opposed to the side here because there's just not much space to work in, so I have to be a little bit careful. But that's just sort of building it. Now that's the edges are too sharp, so I have to soften them and fade them. I still want to have that fade, and I still want to have a little bit up the back here. Right up to the point. And then I'll just make the core shadow a little bit darker. And then just sort of the edge. All right, starting to take shape. I mean, I'm probably a bit heavy with my line on that side. It should probably be a little bit brighter on that side, lighter, because it's on the light side. So this is where you can use lines to help suggest three-dimensional aspects of your drawing as well, right? So it doesn't have to be just tone. Lines can help you. Tone, lines, and perspective, I think. All right, something like that. Okay, now the sphere maybe. How are we going for time? Oh, only a couple of minutes. All right, so I'll just try to indicate or show you how I would think about the sphere and draw the sphere. Firstly try to get it, the circle, as circular or as round as possible, and then think about the direction and the shadow again, which we did earlier. So the core shadow is going to be in here somewhere. All right, and then just build it up. Just build it up slowly. It's always good to work lightly first. And then to stand back and have a look and make changes that you need to make. And sort of imagine that it's a little bit darker under here as well. You can use the side of your finger to help you soften your tone. You can use an eraser I could start bringing in a little bit of tone maybe in the sky, just to help with my drawing. Make it look a little bit more dynamic. Alright, so I'll stop there, and hopefully that's given you some idea of how you might go about your complex geometric character drawing using 12 or more basic geometric forms.